Hello, and welcome back to everything taking longer than I expected it to. So, context, I wanted to draw something 2 or 3 hours. Not too in depth, not too bad. I don't draw. I'm drawing from a reference, but I don't draw the door in the background. I believe it's like a glass door. I don't draw that because it seemed like too much, and I was just gonna do something real quick. And then this took 6.5 hours because I have a problem. And that problem is called time management. So I do like how it looked, so I'm like, okay, yeah, it was a good decision. But I have to keep telling myself that because I'm not sure deep down in my heart. Uh, and I, to a certain degree, I'm glad I chose a reference because I didn't want to have to figure out a pose this week. I just didn't. Uh, but I always take forever with reference because every single time I draw something, I'm like, does it match the reference? If it doesn't, why? So like her neck area does not match. And the reason is that I draw necks and like heads different than they do. Uh, and what I mean by that is that her chin is up in that picture, but it just kind of her head is a giant little moosh. It's so squishy, and so you don't really see too much of a neck. But I don't draw heads like that, uh, even though it's very cute. I don't. My heads are not mushable like that because I'm not. I guess because I'm not an animator, that's not my background. So you do see a neck. I gave her one, and that just threw a lot of stuff off. Like her hands are not in front of her face, and I decided, yeah, I want it that way. Um, so I actually started with the line art of the eyes, which I usually don't. I usually delay it to the last because I'm procrastinating, but this time I'm like, how about instead of doing it when I'm tired and miserable from all the line art I'm doing, I'll do it when I'm fresh and new and excited. And maybe then they will turn out nice. And they did turn out nice, so maybe that's the way to go. Hope I remember that. But yeah, just every time I draw, there's always something I do different for no reason. And I guess that's the one. So just kind of trying to figure out, because I didn't follow the reference 100% with the proportions. Uh, some of the, like where the hands are in relation to everything is slightly different. And so some of it is showing that wouldn't be showing. Like under the collar, there's on her right, our left, there's a little bit of the blue showing. And on the reference, it's only on the right side. But it's just, I shifted things around a little bit. Also, you see a little bit more of her, so I just guessed what her dress was doing. I made it up. I wasn't trying to find a second reference from the same episode to use. That was too much. After all, it was only going to be a quick little drawing. Definitely not taking 6.5 hours. Uh, I do love her little ear swirls. Like they're just little hair swirls by her ears. They're very cute. But they're kind of a mess to draw because the swirl has to be perfect because they stand out. Um, if you're wondering, another thing I guessed on, not just this, I guessed on like the exact shape of her little bun things. Look like they're like ear bun. They are wild. I love them. I love that they're Usagi's but pointy. It brings me such joy. That's why I drew her. Her characters, I love her character design. She's not my favorite character. I don't, honestly, Tuxedo Mask is probably my favorite character because he's just, the phrase Tuxedo Mask sparks joy. I don't have anything else to add to that. It's the entire statement. So here I am. Actually, this week I did 3 different layers of hair, like of the hair. So like the pigtail, the buns, and the bangs are all on separate layers, and then I merged them just then. And that was so I could make big sweeping movements and erase it out without it being like a mess. because sometimes when you try and erase out, you end up erasing things you're not supposed to, and then you struggle. I didn't want to do that, because after all, I was trying to save time. So here I am adding the skin tone, and I'm directly color picking from the reference, which is one of the reasons I've been wanting to use reference recently. I've been drawing fan art because I liked color picking from things. It's so satisfying. Although I was initially really concerned with the color because it was a very pink skin tone, and it was up against like that teal, and I had to be like, relative colors will fix this mess. It will look good, and it does. They knew what they were doing. I was a little intimidated with the color as soon as I put it down the first time. Okay. Oh God, my voice. See, the thing about the like hair color is that hers is very pale pink, within like really strong darker colors. And I tried to color pick that, and I just found that like on the eyebrows and all that, it just did not stand out against her skin in the way I wanted it to. For how I draw things in my style. So I'm gonna end up I'm taking the darker color and the shadow color, and then I'm gonna use a gradient to the lighter color. But what I didn't consider is that how I shade hair leads to the hair ending up darker than it starts off, like pretty significantly. I do add highlights, but I add way more shading. Yeah, make sure I'm doing with the lighter pink. So I do feel like her hair looks a bit darker in the finished image than it usually does. Oops. But I felt like the contrast that let that added was good for my image, so I left it. And here I am shading with a multiply layer. You can see it's like a purple. I was initially planning on shading with pink because everything's so pink, but then I just couldn't find a pink that looked good on her skin tone. And if you're wondering why I'm making sure to blend it out a little bit under the bangs, it's because I do make the bangs a little transparent later. And if you have a harsh line, it really shows up when you do that. So, yeah. I had to make sense of what her puffy sleeves were doing because I had not considered it. I was just like, I'll figure it out later. And now it's later, and it was kind of a struggle. Nope. Yeah, I added the shading like halfway down. I always struggle between like a third or like a quarter of the way down and halfway down, but I wanted there to be a lot of shadow on the iris. And the wife that I just had to suffer for that. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to them. Here I am kind of doing my hair shading, how I do that. And yeah, you can see it ending up darker than it starts off. And when I'm erasing here, I do make sure to follow the kind of the curvature of everything and the way the hair is going, because it's meant to be light catching hair strands, and that's why I erase it out, just for visual interest and texture. Yeah, you see, here's the thing with drawing Sailor Moon characters and their wonderful feathered 90s bangs. Is that sometimes when they're to the side like that, I get a little lost of where the bangs end and where the the bun, the hair being pulled back into the bun begins. I think I figured it out this time. I never know when I'm looking at it. So here I am highlighting, but you see the highlights are only on like a smaller part than the shadows are, so it still looks like a darker pink. Yep, here I am adding highlights with like a selection. Oh, I struggle with the nose highlight. Yep. All my highlights are on add layers, except for these. These are just normal layers because they're just shapes. I like to add like a really bright color as basically a shadow underneath the highlights I do in the eyes. Like the round highlights, not the fun little highlights. Which now I'm coloring the line art. And with the hair, I decided to use 2 different line art shades. Here I'm adding some transparency to the end of the pigtails the and the bangs, and erasing some of the line art and stuff like that. Just making it look nice. This is all finishing work. Just adding some interest and like wildness to the hair because it looked, too neat if you don't do that. Yeah. Hope you enjoyed.